We're going to call the Wednesday, June 1st, 2022 Board of Education meeting to order. Everyone please silence your electronic devices and we will stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Additions and deletions to the agenda since Friday mailing.
I don't have any additions or deletions. I do have a correction to 7.6. He'll be changing his start date to June 20th.
Okay. We need to approve that. Okay, can I have a motion for the change? Mr. McFerrin, Mrs. Klein, all in favor? Aye. I need a motion for the acceptance of the minutes of the May 18th, 2022 BOE meeting. Mr. McFerrin, Mrs. Klein, all in favor? All right. And we have special presentations. We're starting with high school?
No, we're going to start with our stop arm camera.
Okay.
He is scheduled around this time.
All right, the bus stop.
Hello. Hi, is this Steve? Hello?
Try it now, Joanne.
Hi, is this Steve?
Yes, this is.
Hi, welcome to the Board of Education. Are you going to be able to share your screen?
So I just landed, and the CEO of the company is waiting in the Google Meet wait room. Are you able to let him in?
Yeah, well, we don't really know what waiting room you're in. Give us a minute. There's nobody there.
So can you just confirm for me, is it a Zoom or is it a Google Meet invite?
It is a Google Meet.
Okay, because he says that he is in he clicked on the link and that he's in the wait room of the Google Meet invite that you sent me.
Well, Heidi accepted it, so no harm.
We're close, though. I mean, we're this close. That's a good thing. We're this close. We're going to get there.
Technology at its best.
Okay, and the like I said, the CEO of the company, Jean Soulier, is also on the line. He just dialed in as well. So let me send this to him.
Good evening, everyone.
Hold on.
Yeah, my name is Jean Soulier. I'm the CEO and founder of Bus Patrol.
Or do you just want to go through your presentation?
Yeah, I am able to share a screen. I'm actually on Google Meets right now in the waiting room, and I've been for the last 10 minutes. I'm not sure if you folks can see me there or not.
We cannot see you there. I can tell you that
All right.
Heidi accepted the invite.
John, I just emailed you the link that they just sent me. If you check your email quick.
Okay, I'm in my email right now. Are you sure you emailed it to me, Steve?
I just forwarded it to you.
Yeah, you texted it to me, but I can't do that from my computer. Can you email it to me?
I did. I forwarded it to you via email.
Okay, hold on. I guess it's just not here yet. Oh, here we go. It just came in. Okay, I will try joining right now. It says that it's asking to be let in. Oh, there we go.
There we go.
John,
All right, can you guys all see me?
we can.
Okay, I can't see you folks, but I'm Jean. Oh, there you are. Wonderful. I'm Jean Soulier, CEO and founder of Bus Patrol. Thank you for taking the time to hear about our school bus safety program tonight. I'm going to share my screen. There we go. All right. So can you guys see the presentation? You can just see me still. Okay. Now you see the presentation? Okay, wonderful. So, all right. So Bus Patrol, we are a safety-focused tech company. We've developed this really cool AI engine named Ava, and she lives on almost 20,000 school buses across America as we speak today. We're by far the most deployed school bus safety program on Earth, and we've done it with some pretty innovative technology. And I'll walk you through that today. But first, I really want to highlight the problem that we've been able to identify, and it's really across the nation. Everywhere we go, it's kind of says the same story. There are over 500,000 school buses that travel across the roads of America. Every year, the National Association of State Directors of Pupil Transportation Services, they do a survey. And in 2019, pre-pandemic, the last time they did this, they asked 130,000 or 131,000 bus drivers to count with their eyes how many times their school buses get passed illegally. And during that one day alone, they found almost 100,000 violations. And that's close to one per day. When extrapolated over the year, that would equal 17 million stop arm violations per year. Now, the consequences of this act are very serious. in 2018 is where there was really national attention was drawn, and that was during when 6 kids were killed during that 1 week alone, 3 from Indiana, and that caused the National Transportation Safety Board. One second, I'm just gonna, oops, sorry guys. Can you guys see me? Sorry, I was getting a ton of feedback online. Can you still see the presentation? Okay, great. So the after that accident, the National Transportation Safety Board did a report, post-mortem analysis, to find out what was going on. And in 2020, they published that report, and they recommended that every state in America pass enabling legislation. Like New York State did in August of 2019. Actually, New York State was one of the first to jump on the bandwagon. Excuse me. Sorry about that. Some technical difficulties here. So Bus Patrol, what we've been able to do is we've been able to demonstrate through these demonstration programs just the severity of the problem. Here are videos that were taken during Suffolk County's launch. This was during the warning period. You can see cars passing a stopped car to pass a stopped school bus. And then you're going to see cars from all directions. And it's not just this one roadway. I'm going to show you a bunch. But one thing you won't see is brake lights. And really, that's the cultural change that Bus Patrol is really effective at being able to drive within the communities that we serve, so that people can start to respect the school bus regardless of the roadway they're on. And that ultimately creates a reflex in drivers, the same one we get when we see a police cruiser on the interstate. We pump our brakes and then we look at our speed. Well, we're hoping that drivers across New York State and in your county, Albany County, which we're really proud to be being able to offer our services to, so that we can change that driving behavior as well. Here is a video that was taken the first month of enforcement in Suffolk County, and we have dozens of these already, actually. They're pretty scary. You can see the little kid diving out of the way. This made the local news, News 12, and really helped propel the social awareness as well as the community support for our program. Now, the way the system works, it's very, very straightforward and very automated. Ava lives on the bus, and she's able to monitor up to 8 lanes of traffic in a variety of weather conditions and lighting conditions, and I'll show you guys what that looks like. Once she identifies a violator, she builds an evidence package, and that evidence package in Albany County is going to be viewed by an Albany County law enforcement technician, and they'll be the ones using their judgment to issue the violation. It's never Bus Patrol. We build quality evidence packages, but it's always local people who make the determination as to whether someone should get a ticket or not. Once the ticket is issued, we mail it to the offender. They can go online and they can see a video, just like the one I just showed you. That was actually from an evidence package, a video of their car illegally passing a stopped school bus. And that's really compelling. Most people pay after seeing their video. Less than 5% of offenders contest the violation. And of those 5%, less than 2% show up. And of those 2% that show up, we win over 99% of the cases. So it's a very, very efficient form of automated enforcement that successfully changes behavior. Now, I talked about AI and how it works. I want to introduce you to Ava. You'll see here on the top left the amber light signal, and then you'll see all of those boxes. That's supervised learning models that we use to train Ava. Why we show this intersection is because there's parked cars across the street, and she's able to identify through all of the noise and all of the traffic, all the vehicles that are breaking the law. And then from there, she does even more. So here you see the Ava overview camera and the 2 license plate cameras that are embedded. Any camera plugged into her neural network can remember any car that's been tagged as a violator. And this allows us to automate the evidence package build before it goes out to law enforcement. And it also allows us to identify what frame of the video has the clearest plate picture. So we're always offering quality evidence. Now, what the school districts get out of this is a bunch of really useful data. So we're able to demonstrate what parts of the roadway are most where you'll have the highest probability of having an offense. And this was used in Suffolk County to determine where we were going to put our signs to notify people. But it's also useful for school districts to help their route planning. So we help every school district find safer ways. And if we see stops that are dangerous, then we can help you folks proactively move them before something bad happens. Now, the other thing that's really unique about Bus Patrol is that we cover 100% of every bus everywhere we serve. We don't believe a child's zip code should determine the level of safety they enjoy. We really feel like these safety programs need to be applicable to all. Now, the other part we do is a ticket's just one form of education. However, we know it's not enough. We have to educate communities. So your school district will be given a whole packet full of information, web banners, all kinds of really cool things to educate the public. We'll be doing some earned media launches in Albany as well. And we also have some commercials. The next slide is going to be a commercial that we produced for Suffolk County. And it aired on Fox News, CNN, MSNBC. And we can repurpose this video for any client that we'd like. I hope you enjoy it.
As you approach a stop school bus when driving in Suffolk County, what should you do if you are in this car or this car? New York state law says that in every case, you need to stop. With cutting-edge camera technology, Suffolk County is launching a program that can serve as a national model for school transportation safety. Stop for the bus. It's New York state law. For more information, visit suffolkcountiny.gov/schoolbus.
So I talked earlier about the package you folks will get. Well, we also do social media outreach. So we're able to target specific areas in the communities that we serve to make sure we get lots of impressions, millions of impressions. So we're taking every opportunity we can to educate people. We've produced content for web, but also for DMV offices. When people sit waiting to renew their tags and plates, they look up on screens and they can see content that was produced by Bus Patrol. Now, we haven't forgotten about the kids either. So your school district will also get some learning materials for your kids. It includes coloring books, animated videos. The next clip is a 30-second clip of an animated video that we prepared for New York City's or New York State school districts. And your school district will be able to use this video to help your kids understand their responsibility because it's their little feet that are crossing the street and they play a role in their own safety.
Get on the bus, sit on down and sing this little pop. Now, children, this is important. When you cross the road, you all need to follow this code. Stay 10 big hops away from the bus so the driver can see you. Always wait for the driver to give you the thumbs up and let you know it's okay to cross the road. Look left and right before you cross. Walk, don't run, just like this picture.
So all of this comes at no cost to schools whatsoever. When you sign up and opt into a Bus Patrol program in New York State, we come in and we equip 100% of your fleet at our cost. And then we maintain that equipment for the life of the program. There's nothing you folks need to do or pay for. All of the labor, all of the maintenance, all of the evidence preparation, everything is done by Bus Patrol. In fact, what we also do is we support every instance of the process. So not just building the evidence, but we also show up in court with expert testimony. I actually testify in court quite often for clients. We build the evidence packages. We have a call center for your citizens to call in and ask questions about the violations they've received. We build media campaigns. We also offer training for your drivers. So we can see when the drivers are using the amber lights and red lights improperly. And then we collect that information and we circle it back. We also have training videos that we've prepared for bus drivers so that they understand how to use their buses properly and execute their stops in the safest possible manner. Now, the other thing that we're super proud of is that 98% of people who get a ticket from Bus Patrol don't get a second one. And that's really a testament to the fact that this program works really, really well. So that was the presentation I had, and now I'd like to open it up to the floor for any questions that I might be able to answer for you.
John?
So I heard in your presentation the phrase a law enforcement technician. Could you clarify what that is?
Sorry, I'm having a real hard time hearing. You may want to get closer to the microphone.
You're good too.
Yep, fine.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, there's some feedback there. Can you guys still hear me? I can't hear you. Yeah, you can. Okay.
Yes.
The gentleman with the laptop in front of me, I could hear you perfectly clearly. So it might be your microphone that's.
You use the phrase law enforcement technician. How is that different from our traditional law enforcement officers and legal responsibilities?
Yeah, so the difference is in New York State, a badged officer can issue a ticket, or someone who's certified by the county and deputized and trained to be able to issue these civil monetary penalties. So that is the resource that is being planned to do the approvals of all the citations in Albany County. It's the county's choice to do. I'm not sure if they're using the sheriff's office at this point, or if they're hiring a retired officer, or if they're training a new civilian that they plan to assign to the account. But in New York State law, you can have civilians or actual badged officers. Both are permitted. Yeah. No, nothing at all like that. This is a civil monetary penalty only. And there are no points. It's issued to the owner of the vehicle. So there are no points, no effects on insurance, but a great deterrent effect on behavior, which we're able to demonstrate.
So, can I ask, so when you say, are you contracting with the county, or are we contracting with the county? How does that work?
So we are contracted with the county, and as per New York State law, the state law is 1174A. All school districts have the choice to participate, to opt into the program and participate. If you opt into the program, there's nothing else for you to do. You sign an opt-in agreement. We come in and install the equipment on your buses, and we're responsible and indemnify you from any and all risk associated with that.
But the Albany County Sheriffs are who's issuing these tickets? Who's issuing the tickets?
Albany County.
Oh, the county itself. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, the county's issuing the tickets. It's the county's authority that's being used.
What is the county's involvement? Why do we need the county involvement? Can a school district just sign or do something like this directly? What's the county's role?
The way 1174A, the law works, is that to do an automated enforcement demonstration program, the county or local government must hold the contract, and the school districts who wish to participate can opt into it. But it is by law a municipal driven program in New York State.
Anyone currently, correct? With our current cameras, we don't have a contract.
So I can explain the current cameras. So your current cameras are being used in such a way where you have to package your evidence and then share that with police, and then police will follow up. with the complaint. So it's a fairly manual process. This is completely automated, where we build the evidence packages, we submit it for approval, we mail it to the offender, and manage the entirety of the program. So it's different in nature. We're using 1174A, which is the bill that was passed to enable this type of automated enforcement for the state.
What's the amount of the ticket? What's the fine?
The fine is $250 for your first occurrence, $275 for the second, and $300 for the third. It's the local courts that adjudicate. So the tickets are approved centrally and contested in any in the locality with where the ticket was issued.
So, and when they pay the ticket, the money goes to the county?
Correct. The money goes to the county for all of these programs. If they don't pay, we can tag the owner's license plate so that when they go to renew their plate, then they can't renew it until they pay all their outstanding fines. Well, we're working on behalf of the county. So what we do is we produce a report for all of the delinquent offenders. And then those delinquent offenders through the DMV, and we actually have access again in working on behalf of the county to the DMV, which we already have established for the multitude of programs we're operating in New York State. And then we're able to, that's where we grab the owner information, the license plate information. It's the same integration process that we're able to identify these delinquent drivers to ensure that when they go to a DMV office and they haven't paid, that they're made to.
Informational package that you put together for different school districts?
Yeah, we provide all of the program information. So to make sure that you guys are equipped should you have to answer any questions. But we have a call center as well, so that you're able to redirect all of those questions to Bus Patrol and the services we have so that you aren't burdened with having to answer all of these questions. We're really a full-stop shop for automated enforcement and school bus safety to make sure that we're the ones taking those calls instead of you folks. But yes, we give you all the info.
And so if somebody gets one of these tickets and comes to the school district complaining about this, where do we refer them? How does that work?
Yeah, you can refer them to the call center. We provide you, again, all that information. We can refer them to the website. And we're very, very engaged with the offenders. They call us. We answer questions. Again, it's something I've done personally on a multitude of occasions.
If there's an egregious case that happens where our local law enforcement actually witnesses a passing of the lights, does your platform provide them a way to work collaboratively so that it's more than just a fine and they can actually pursue them with charges?
Yeah. Like if there's something bad that happens, which has happened, by the way, in New York State, a kid was hit in Suffolk County. And after we launched the program and we worked with law enforcement. Also, there was another incident where there was an accident with a school bus that we were able to help assist police with. There was a right side pass as well recently where the mailboxes were taken off on the right side while the kid was about to get off. So, and then we grabbed the license plate and we work with police to make sure that those people are held accountable for the most egregious cases, for sure. Yeah, all the ones we've worked. We've been operating programs since 2017. So we've issued, I think, almost 1 million tickets.
Issued a ticket and there's also been a law enforcement stop at the same time?
Yeah, at that point, the criminal penalty supersedes the civil one.
What happens? Do you not generate a citation? How do you know not to generate a citation?
Well, typically when that happens, we also see the law enforcement officer like in the video clip. Like we can see that happening. But and by the way, the odds of that happening are like 1 in a million. I think it's happened once as long as we've been running these programs. However, if it were to happen and the offender would get 2 tickets, they could, say, hey, I've got my ticket. They could produce both. We would void one using the administrative processes implemented with the county.
How many districts have you partnered with so far in New York State?
Wow, hundreds.
How about in the capital region?
In the capital region, we just got the opt-in approved. And I believe that South Colony was the first to opt in on their board meeting of May 31st. Bethlehem is scheduled for June 15th. And to give you an idea, in Suffolk County, there are 71 school districts, all 71 opted in. In Nassau County, where we're serving the towns and cities in Nassau County, I think we're over 30 now. So our programs are very popular. It's very rare that a school district opts out of our program.
Purchased for the school buses. We have school buses, a lot of them, that already have cameras on them. Sounds like you come in and put something else in. What happens to all that expense that we just laid out?
Yeah, so what I would say is that because of supply chain issues, there's actually a great market for secondary resale of equipment. And you're likely going to get pretty close to what you paid for it because of those supply chain issues. Now, our equipment is purpose built for this. And is by far the most sophisticated equipment that's available today. So you're definitely getting an upgrade. But the beauty about our stuff is maintained for the full 5 years of the program, which means if a kid rips it off, we come in and replace it at no cost. Anything that happens, Bus Patrol is continuously replacing. We only get paid out of collected ticket revenue. So making sure that your equipment is always functional is our top priority. Otherwise, I mean, if it's not working, we would never get paid.
Go away in 5 years.
Well, I mean, we're almost 500 employees now. We're owned by some of the largest private equity firms in the world. We're deployed across almost 20,000 buses. If big counties and big cities across the country are trusting us, then I'm pretty sure that you guys should feel safe. We'll be around. Notwithstanding all of those assets, there'd be an opportunity for reuse if you wanted to.
Behavior enough that you don't generate the citations, and therefore it's not profitable for you to maintain anymore.
Yeah, that's the purpose of this company, really, is to make sure that we drive this behavior completely away. We know it won't, though. We've been running these programs for a long time. So we're going to see a decline, and then you're going to see a floor. But AVA is being built to do a multitude of public safety tasks. Our company has grander visions in how we secure physical schools as well. And in fact, we're training AVA to be able to recognize if someone brings a gun or a knife on school premises or on a bus, so that we can automate alerts and make sure that we can avoid some of the tragedies that we've seen recently.
How do you provide customer service locally? Because obviously here, I assume you're out of the area. How would we receive tech assistance, or we would have one of your technicians here if there was a problem?
Yeah, it's a great question. We actually hire our field technicians across the country in close to the markets that we serve. And what happens is they'll spend 2 weeks installing and wherever we need installation help, and then 1 week at home in their home market offering maintenance and service. And we do that for a multitude of field service technicians. We use Salesforce.com to manage the dispatch of all of our field service technicians. And we have an SLA that's in the agreement with the county that guarantees response times. The other thing is that we're equipping our equipment on 100% of the buses, including your spares. So if ever a unit needed to be repaired, you could just send one of your spares out knowing it will be equipped with all of our technology, while our field service technicians make sure that the equipment is repaired accordingly.
It's not working.
You don't need to, we do. It's all connected to the cloud. So every time the bus gets turned on, all the components report back to the mothership. And then we're able to diagnose remotely what's going on. If we see problems, we can fix most of them from our computers. This is all modern cloud connected technology and that is just isn't available in pupil transportation regularly. And we need need to do that because we're servicing thousands and thousands of buses across the country. And in order to do that effectively, we have to have that easy access to it.
Failure?
We actually use cell networks to communicate the video data over, and we're able to use multiple carriers. We also have some pretty cool technology that allows us to shrink that high definition video and transfer it efficiently using artificial intelligence. Ava manages the flow of data. And we also queue up the job so that if a job were to stop because of a network failure, then it queues right back up. The minute the network becomes available again, it doesn't lose a beat and then continues, and we don't lose events. Like, we're transferring 99% of stop arm events to our back-end infrastructure that have a possibility of having a violation in them, a high probability of having a violation in them. On the run, by the time the run is done, those transfers are done.
So how, if there is a egregious violation like Tina was talking about, how long would it be before we found out?
Well, what happens is that the evidence gets put into our evidence processing queue and then hits our processor. If our processor sees something egregious, then they reach out, and there's a protocol for this internally. They'll reach out directly to the program manager. We have a program manager that's assigned to the county, and then they will reach out to the school district and notify them.
Well, what if the flip happens? What if the bus driver comes back from their run and says, this happened 15 minutes ago? How do we process that with you?
Yeah, then you can go there. There's a multitude of ways. One is you can reach out to us directly. You can put it in through our console. You'll have a web console access to the platform, and then you can make a request yourself to download that event.
So if we were to opt to download an event because the bus driver says this was scary, the student was scared, the parents may have been scared, are we able to reach out to you so that we can begin a criminal referral with our local police?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. We're here to serve anytime, 24/7.
Do we have access to any of that data? Do we have access to that tape? Or
The video is owned because this is an enforcement only implementation. So it skipped my mind because we do have some implementations where you use internal cameras. This is only enforcement in Albany. So the enforcement video by law is the property of the county. However, they will share it with you for egregious situations, but it would have to be approved by the county to share it. Minutes. It's not hard.
So is there?
Not yet. The program hasn't launched. We had our first school board approval on May 31st. So all the Albany programs will be launching in September.
Okay.
Contact at the county that we should be speaking to about this? Is it the county executive? Is there somebody else?
Yeah, you can speak to someone. We can set you up with Joe. Steve, what's Joe's last name? Oh, you muted him. So it's Joe B. I forget his last name, but Joe is the representative at the county that's responsible for the program. And I've been working with Lucas Rogers on it.
There are a few pieces that we would definitely want to have the county covered in such a and whether they do have access to the data and who these employees are, or even internal.
Yeah, so just to be clear, your internal cameras are not part of this implementation in Albany County. All we're doing is the stop arm enforcement. So the amount of interaction that you'll have with the system will be minimal unless there's something very serious that happens, like an accident or something like that.
Internal cameras for our.
Yeah, all the rest of the cameras on our buses would continue to work. I meant to say if we had an internal issue such as
Yeah. Yeah, sure. I'll talk to the county about that. There's things we can put in place to simplify that for you.
All right. Thank you very much for your time today. Does anybody else have any other questions? Thank you very much. Sorry for the blip in the beginning, but we appreciate your time this evening.
No worries. Thank you so much for considering our program. We look forward to working with you, and please be safe, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
We know that there's some questions that we want to follow up with the county. Are there other questions or thoughts that would be relevant for the company?
For the company, I don't think he understood my question, which is, if they're doing software updates on the fly because they're noticing something, that takes bandwidth. That in our area, how would the bus driver know while that update's happening that they can't use that bus? Right? So you turn it on. Something's not working properly. Is there a notification in front of the bus driver that says this is not working right now, or are they completely blind to it? He alluded to the fact that he can make updates on the fly, or they make updates on the fly all the time, and they can do diagnostics.
The bus driver wouldn't even know that it wasn't working.
But that's a concern that I would have.
So some of the rural areas that we travel in have anything. I don't.
You can't. Right. Ask him, but it doesn't work like that.
So,
what does it matter? Why would we know if our cameras work now anyway?
Well, how do we know that?
yeah, I was going to say the cameras are recording digitally throughout. It's the upload when the EVA is, that's what he's saying, when it's notified, it then attempts to upload through cell phone service, and all of us know you go from the Hollow to the Alcove and Greenville, and you're going to get in and out. So I think what he's trying to infer is that it knows where it ended up and it will continue. But there's certainly some spots where there's no signal at all.
Do we have lost signal now?
I don't know, but what we can do is we can have 24/7 come in and show you the system that we use right now, so you have the ability to compare both. Right now, as I told you last week, we have about 43% of our buses already have stop arm cameras. So I know that the company 24/7 would be more than happy to come in and show you how that works and answer that question, Tina, so I can arrange for that.
Nobody's got a ticket from 24/7, right?
Has nobody, yes, they have.
They get tickets? Okay.
No, we get the information and we go and we work with Albany County
And
Sheriff.
have we done that?
Yeah,
Okay.
yes.
And that's a violation, that's a driving violation.
That's points on somebody's license.
I mean, I also think we're going to have to speak with the county. We have to find out who the contact is. If we need to get any videos or any information, who the contact's going to be to get that information. There's got to be some kind of procedure, I would think, put in place to get information from the county. I mean,
I also want to know who the person is that's going to be doing it. There's a lot of generalization about it'll be a specifically trained person, but the county does have some responsibility and follow through in making sure that the program is implemented the way it's supposed to be.
If we did opt in, if we didn't like it, we opt out.
5 years.
5 years?
I believe so.
And what happens after 5 years?
That's
We
what I
would
said.
have to renew.
is there a cost in 5 years?
Is it like a solar, we gotta buy it?
I would love to know when they started, and I forgot to ask that question.
When they started?
Yeah.
They said 2017, I thought, was when they first started.
Yeah, it looked that way, Bill, right?
And he said it would not include internal cameras.
No, it does not. We've already paid a lot of money for those. I wouldn't want to do that.
Okay.
We own those, and that are.
We get in the business of selling cameras, though.
Huh?
We get in the business of selling cameras. Great market out there. By the way, I heard there's a huge turnout for the robotics going on in the gym right now. Over 300 people, correct?
Yeah, if I can interrupt, we're probably 300 people there tonight.
That's awesome. It's a good place for
And there's, when I just left, there were 2 ridiculously huge robots battling out.
Good to know.
You guys can take a seat next time. I knew Didn't we say robots at the next meeting? So we expect 200 to 300.
They gotta be adequately spaced.
So is our plan to have some more feedback from the county during one of our next meetings?
One of the next couple of meetings, we'll have county input, and we'll also get 24/7, am I correct? That's what we were
So,
going-
this might seem stupid, but is there any downfall to having them? Because couldn't we also have 24/7?
No.
Why not?
We can have 24/7 interior, not exterior.
Why not?
You can't have, because they have
It's all
sole
or nothing.
proprietorship.
They have what?
Sole proprietorship. That was through the county. So they are the one outfit that would do it. If we opt in, they get all of the buses. We cannot have dual platforms.
But they do two different things.
What was that?
They're two totally different things. One is a civil thing, another is a criminal thing. They shouldn't overlap at all.
We're signing our criminal rights off.
Yeah.
I would tell them we want the option to have both. That
I
way,
think
if we
that
don't
goes
like.
back to the New York State 11.4.
1174.
I don't think there's
Right.
any way New York State would put in there
Right.
that, I mean, I'd like to look at it, but I don't think they would put in there
That'll
that
be the
you can have one or the other. I don't see why you couldn't have both, and that way, if it doesn't work out, fine, they can leave their stuff on there and they can have all the data they want, and if we don't use it, we don't use it, but we'd still have the option for the criminal proceedings.
But this is the county's contract. So they're the ones dictating that if we put those into your buses, these are the terms you have to agree to.
The county has no jurisdiction over school district.
Well, it said
If they're
the
paying for it.
The law, they
The
do.
program says it has to go through municipality, and then that's why the county's getting part of this money.
I believe our agreement would be with the county.
It is,
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah. The county gets part of the money, and then this company gets part of the money.
If that's the case, I vote no right now. Let's not waste any time. I don't like to be pigeonholed into something
No,
like that
I-
and take
I
away our
agree.
I'd like to see
options
at least
for
a
criminal.
year or two worth of data
I
and see
agree.
what it works for other
Yeah,
districts.
and I don't want a 5-year trial period, because if it doesn't work out, we're stuck for 5 years and we make no progress.
I would be curious to know, to hear feedback from other school districts who have used it since 2017 to find out if it's been a 5-year contract for them, they're about at the end of their 5 years. That's very relevant because so many unknowns with just starting in Albany County. And I do know, Joanne and I are aware that other school districts are considering it. And it's not all 24 right now. There are bits and pieces for all the same reasons that we're having these discussions. They have their own investment in the equipment. They have their own plans and operations around how they deal with people who break the law. I was going to say, Bray, to your question, why can't both cameras be out there? He had stated that if in the event of 2 tickets being issued, in other words, a law enforcement person happens to witness it, when the law enforcement person is issuing a ticket and they are issuing a ticket, they step back and they allow law enforcement to do that. If we were dealing with people passing our cameras and we were doing our due diligence, every single one would end in a traffic ticket issued by one of our law enforcement agencies, which means 0 money for the people who are running the stop arm cameras.
Yeah.
In a perfect world.
How does this impact we have contracted runs, how does this impact those?
They have to opt into it as well. They said I was speaking to another gentleman today, that said that they don't get any pushback from that, and that they wouldn't necessarily enforce it even though it's part of the agreement. But I would have to reach out to Cooksaki Transport, because they'll do everything.
I think one of the best benefits from this is the commercials that they talked about, and I think we would get that benefit anyways if Bethlehem's doing it or Colony's doing it. They're putting the commercials out there. We're gonna get the commercials saying, we're gonna get you. We have cameras on our buses. We keep control of the cameras. We're getting the commercials because other school districts are doing it.
And I reached out to Bethlehem, and they don't have any stop arm cameras right now.
Right, so they're not losing it.
They're not losing it.
So they
Neither
didn't
does
make,
they have
right.
not. What?
They didn't make an investment in that yet.
Right, they're not making an investment.
A civil penalty, I don't think is a deterrent. I question that success number, but maybe it is what it is.
Yeah, you get adjudicated every 2 years before the registration comes up.
And whether it's successful or not, it's not a long-term deterrent.
Right.
I don't,
I pay 215, I pay 300.
from a bus driver's perspective, I don't care about the money.
No.
I would want it to be a criminal consequence.
We
if
want
you
to address
pass-
it right there and then.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have to gather some more information. Okay. We want to move forward to the high school program presentation?
Yeah. So during the budget process, we had intended to have each of the buildings present processes around program. Because in the end, everything that we're doing here, even the conversations about transportation, are relevant to the programs that we're offering to our children, to have them be as successful as possible. Knowledge, flexibility, empowerment, ability to go out into the world and be successful. We were unable to do that for various reasons. We lost one meeting in the process in the spring, and this is a very reasonable and rational place for us to basically conclude this year. I frequently say people pay very close attention to the high school, maybe more so than other buildings, other than the fact that we love our children no matter which building they're in. The level of accountability at the high school level is magnified because of the optics around graduation rate, the optics around Regents exam scores, school ranking, very highly gravitated toward high school outcomes. So the only presentation that you're getting prior to the end of the school year will be the high school programmatic presentation. The elementary school, middle school will present sometime during the summer after they have their accumulated data from the year. We need to know how students have done, and their data points will be finishing up over these next few weeks as we finish up school. Granted, we don't have Regents scores right now for our high school students. This is the first time we're going to be having Regents in basically more than 2 years. So that will be relevant as well. So the discussion today is going to be a lot about programmatic investment. We talked briefly about it in the budget presentation before we voted on the budget. And to share some data that is relevant and somewhat frightening. We keep talking about social emotional impacts and the weakness that has occurred in the resiliency of students and of the adults in our district and in our communities over these last 2 years. Dr. Paterni and Colleen Agustinoni will be talking through the information that you have there in those slides.
Good evening, everyone. So we'll start with our 3 E's, which we like to talk about, as we get our kids through pre-K through 12th grade, we're looking to prepare them for employment, enlistment, enrollment. So here's a collection of the focus areas for the high school tied to the 3 E's and student support services. These have continued to adapt and are based on the feedback of the budget committee from the spring of 2021. Students will be given the opportunities to, and you can read that in front of you, career exploration, etc. But we're going to have Ms. Agustinoni start with the focus for student support services.
Good evening. Thank you, Dr. Paterni. I have the pleasure of being the Director of Student Support Services here at RCS, and I'm going to take some time to share with you the priorities for special education programming at the high school level for the 22-23 school year. Everything that I'm going to review with you tonight has zero budget impact and increase, and there is also no additional staff needed for these priorities and changes that we are anticipating for next school year. So priority 1, increasing programmatic opportunities for our students. This past year, we did a lot of reflection and reviewed our continuum of services for our students and whether or not it met the needs. We created programmatic descriptions for all of our services throughout the district, which helps us better identify and place students in the appropriate classes. We also looked at the way that we utilize staff throughout the district. In doing this, we were able to create 5 additional services for our students next school year at the secondary level. We are offering 3 new self-contained Regents classes, an Algebra 1, 1A, 1B, and Living Environment. We are opening a second self-contained classroom to service students aged 16 through 21. So it's going to be focused on functional work and life skills, and it will allow us to support our students until they age out and hit 21. And then what else? So then we also have an additional support class. We're calling it Academic Tutorial. It will be available to any student that has a disability. And basically it's in lieu of a study hall. It's just an extra period a day that we're able to support them. So that's priority 1. Priority 2 is our highly trained staff with the most up-to-date knowledge. We have some really amazing teachers, pupil personnel staff, and support staff here at RCS. And we want to support these individuals and make sure that they're well-trained so they can work with our students. Next year, we have a variety of professional development opportunities for our staff throughout the school year, such as IEP development training, training in specialized reading programs that we've purchased. And then we have 2 year-long trainings. One is focused at the integrated co-teaching level, and then one is focused at in our self-contained classes. So it'll support the 7 self-contained classes that we have throughout the district. Priority 3 is additional release time for our transition coordinator. This past school year, we have had our first in-house transition coordinator. Previous to this year, we've contracted out. She has done some absolutely amazing work throughout this school year with our juniors and seniors. The work that she does is invaluable. It helps our students find a purpose, set goals, and ensure all the necessary supports are in place prior to and after graduation. So next year we are looking to give our transition coordinator extra release time to allow her some extra time to do that work, and we also want to extend her work down into the middle school so we can start planning and working with students earlier. Priority 4, increase access to high quality curriculum. I spoke a moment ago of how important it is to ensure that our staff are supported. We believe it's equally as important to make sure that they also have high quality curriculum. So it is a priority of our district, to identify that high quality curriculum. This past year, we've had, we started using the Really Great Reading program. We piloted it last school year and found success. This past school year, 100% of our special education teachers have had access to the training and are able to implement it within our classrooms. So in addition to that, we're also investing in the EdMark program, which is an alternative to a phonics-based approach, which is what Really Great Reading is. It's a whole word approach, identifying and knowing that all students don't learn the same. So it's an alternative reading program. And then we're also investing in unique curriculum. And students will have access to these programs starting next school year. Any questions?
So your first bullet about the self-contained Algebra 1A, 1B, and living
environment biology.
Environment.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, we deliberately kind of geared away from that a few years ago because there was some feedback either from state ed or one of our consultants about the ratio of students.
Okay.
Can you speak to the return to it?
So all of our specialized academic programs are 15-1. They are Regents level, so they prepare all of our students for the Regents at the end of the year. Algebra is the only, since I've started at least, the only area that we do not cover when we're trying to prepare our students for Regents. 99% of the students in our district and that are identified are working towards a diploma. 1% are alternatively assessed. So that means all 99% of those students, we need to give access to this high quality curriculum, rigorous curriculum, and some students need that setting to be successful, because it is difficult. I can't speak to the review or why. I'm not sure if anybody knows why, but.
If I remember correctly, I think it was because of certifications. So the state came out regarding.
I can speak to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think it was certifications, but you are right. There was a explicit reason why we started to move away from self-contained classrooms.
Yeah, so I can speak to that too. So last year, the state issued a pathway for teachers to be highly trained who hold a students with disabilities certification. And I forgot what the exact criteria was, but if they've had experience teaching in a self-contained classroom for 3 or more years, it gave them the certification to then be able to teach that and be considered highly qualified. So we are able to, in all of our areas, all of our 15-1 areas, we do have highly qualified teachers teaching the content and material.
Where we've been inconsistent in the past, and Colleen and her colleagues have worked very hard to do, is to ensure that we are both meeting the state mandate, but also, we use the words highly qualified. All of us would want a certified teacher with the experience and the subject matter to be working with our children. It hasn't always been the case in the past, and that is an example of, basically, it's a discriminatory practice. The students are 99% headed toward a local or Regents diploma. How could they possibly get there without access to a specialist who understands the core content? There's a Regents exam waiting for them at the end of the tunnel. Without having access to the teacher with that skill set, definitely place them behind. And we've done a number of things in the past. We've team taught in order to give access, so we'd have a special education teacher and a special area teacher in that subject matter, for instance, science, which is one of the harder ones to get. And notice I didn't say co-teach. Sometimes it was team taught. They would rotate through every other day. Sometimes it was a co-teaching. We've used a few models to try and deliver that. This is a significant improvement where we move everything into the column of completely in alignment with what the state is asking us to do and giving kids access to the right staff to do the work.
Will there continue to be a 1A and 1B for students not classified?
Yes.
Okay. Because I think that the original circumstance had to do with the ratio of students with IEPs to none actually created the self-contained environment. Okay. So we'll have 2 different avenues too. Okay.
We still have that supported through the co-taught model, but we will also have the 15-1 as well as an alternative.
So I heard you say, or I think I heard you say that what you're planning to do next year is with the same allocation of staff.
Yes.
Right? And you talked about additional release time for the transition coordinator. Were they fulfilling another role for part of their day?
This current year?
Yeah.
So all of our teachers teach 5 instructional periods. So we were able to, with some of the changes that we made to our programs and services, it freed that individual up. So I believe she gets 1 period off every day is what it's going to, so a 0.8-ish, right?
So is that what she was this year? What are we planning for next year?
So she's going to have 1 period off. She is teaching a full content this year of 5 instructional classes.
So given that we're staying with the same staff,
Yep.
we're reorganizing.
Yeah.
Where I'm going with this is that IEPs change from year to year. How much space do we have with ratios to account for that?
Right.
And before we get the item in the fall that we're hiring a special ed teacher because we have a new IEP.
Yeah, so we have cushion built into our programs and the level of services that we need to provide. One of the big things that freed up some of the space this year, we're servicing 22 resource rooms throughout the district, or not throughout the district, at the high school alone. I just mentioned that our teachers can teach 5 instructional periods. That's over 4 teachers, 4+ teachers teaching only resource room.
Resource room
Right.
is it's a instructional time for students to work with a special education teacher on whatever the content is, homework or core content or relating with the teacher.
Yeah.
4 teachers dedicated to doing that for just the students that are in the high school.
So we're reducing the resource room from 22 to what?
So we are still offering resource room. I spoke about further developing our criteria and our service delivery descriptions for our services. So resource room is a supplemental instruction. So there's a purpose for it. There has to be a deficit that's illustrated through, evaluations that we determine is appropriate at the committee level. So we still have resource room when it is appropriate. However, there's consideration for all the other programs that are being offered to students, whether it be integrated co-teaching or we have these 15-1 self-contained classrooms as well. So we look to meet that level of need in that setting first, and if we cannot, that's when we offer that supplementary support in resource room. So we are, the academic tutorial is one of the things that is going to help pick up that slack. It's a place where 1 period per day students have access to a special education teacher. They're able to complete homework. They're able to, complete assignments, study for a test, things that you're not supposed to do in resource room because it's supposed to be explicit instruction. So we are trying to just better, at the committee level, better identify students that truly need that explicit instruction in their area deficit versus students that just need a little extra support.
So that would be defined within their IEP?
Correct, both will
So
be.
that's what it is.
Yeah.
When we look to
Academic
develop-
tutorial is not a state-approved program, so it's going to come over the accommodation section of the IEP. Resource room will continue to stay in the program section of the IEP.
What Colleen just described to you is we were oversubscribing medication. We were giving students access to a resource that wasn't necessarily required as a component of the program. We were just giving it to them automatically. And instead, as you described, there's a purposeful process and measurement which is used to determine whether a student belongs in resource room or self-contained or 15-1 or co-taught. So.
Good.
Thank you.
I didn't mean homework and resource
Thanks,
room. I meant
Colleen.
direct instruction.
So the next slide is Career Cafe, Career Pathways, and Career Exploration. So due to the COVID restrictions at the beginning of the school year, it was difficult to place students. That said, we were able to get some of our students into the field work through work-based learning and internships. So some of the sites that they worked at were TCI of New York, the middle school, Peter B. Elementary, and the school store. 2 of our students were hired at McDonald's, 1 at Marshall's, and 5 students were hired throughout the year at TCI of New York. They have been very accommodating to our students, and they've actually allowed kids to come in and work from 6 in the morning till 7:20 so that they can get here in time and then go back in the afternoon. So that's been a really good partnership that we have. Next year, we'd like to see more speakers from the business community, business owners, financial agencies, military, etc. We're going to hold another job fair. We had one this past March. We're looking to have one in October, which is we're inviting the local unions to come in as part of the job fair. We want to work on collaborative projects, and we want to increase our internships. So we already know, and we're already recruiting for our juniors to have internships with Carver, Owens, Corning, and TCI of New York. So Owens, Corning, and Carver will be new to us this year for internships. So they've found a way to be able to hire our students who are not yet 18. Leadership and personal development. We'll start with RAD, Rape, Aggression, Defense. So you can see there's some pictures in there. I always like to think about that 4th E that we don't talk about, and that's empowerment. I think that's one of the biggest things that we can do for our students is to empower them. And RAD is one of those things that really did empower our kids. You can see I included some pictures in there. But, from the beginning when they came in, some of them were very quiet and, very shy and meek. And when they came out, they had their swagger on. And some of the girls wrote some quotes that I would like to share a few with you just to see how empowered they felt. I'm grateful for the opportunity to learn something so valuable and so essential for my safety after I leave high school. RAD was probably the most important thing I learned over my 4 years here. Being part of RAD was an amazing experience. I thank all of the teachers, staff, administration, and the Albany County Department for bringing this class to our school and seeing the importance in it. Everything that was taught is very valuable and informative, and I will never forget it. The instructors were so great, and we had so much fun. I loved every minute of it. It made me feel very confident and not as scared. It was very realistic to real life situations, and it was so helpful. I'm so glad we did RAD. It helped a lot, and I had a lot of fun doing it. They should definitely do this again for the other girls in this school. So those are just a few of the quotes, but just to actually see the girls come out of it, I mean, they had to fight their way out of situations, and they were big guys dressed in these big red suits, and it was just very transformative. Our diversity and restorative practices, we've held 2 workshops so far. Train the trainer. We had one where students are now leaders. Again, you can see some pictures in there. The work is very transformational. I was very blessed to be part of both the workshops. And we had about 60 students go through, and we had about 10 adults. Some of the other things that we've been doing in the Career Cafe: resume writing workshops, career exploration, cinema studies, open mic, creative writing, and working on some job skills. And for our RAD class, we had approximately 40 students go through it. Connecting classrooms to our community, you can see that we've had a positive and predictive connection to some work opportunities with these companies on the top. And as I mentioned, we expect to expand our work with the internships and companies for 22 and 23. CTE pathways and electives. CTE programming improves career opportunities by providing students with hands-on trainings and the soft skills that they need in the labor force. CTE may improve core academic skills by fostering student engagement and motivating students to attend school more regularly. So currently, we have a maximum of 75 students who can attend CTE on a regular basis. I know that we've talked about this at board meetings before. This year, we have 13 students that are waitlisted. And CTE, out of the 75, have 6 students that are waitlisted. And they're finding that more and more students are trying to get into their CTE programs, and they're limiting the students that can come into their programs. We have, and it's not just our school district, but a lot of school districts are being waitlisted because kids want to get in there. They're coming out of there making a lot of money. There's a shortage, as you very well know, in the workforce. So what we do is we have what we call the ABCs of CTE, and we have a rubric. And it's a 20-point rubric. That's the maximum number of points they can get. And it's based on their attendance, behavior, and the credits that they have. We share this with incoming 9th graders. So at the 8th grade parent night, we talk about the ABCs of CTE. We share it with the 9th graders. We share it with the 10th graders. So they know what the expectations are to be able to get into the CTE program. So right now, we go by attendance, late arrivals, discipline, and number of failing classes. So right now, 11 was the cutoff point. So we do have 13 students that are waitlisted. Any questions? Oh, sorry.
To bring up a sore point, but CTE is just career tech education.
Mm-hmm.
There is no reason we couldn't be running CTE programs here out of this district. And I've been bringing it up for 11 years since I've been sitting here, and it's gone nowhere. Okay, well, let's hear the rest of the presentation and see where we go. Well, I mean, we've been waiting a long time, and we talk about these big grand plans to do building proposals and everything. Why not?
We just went through a $31 million construction project that included none of that. So as we go forward, it absolutely has to include what you're proposing.
Then we wouldn't have to waitlist kids.
Right.
We could be taking in students from other districts.
You're right. No, we absolutely. The next slide, I'll talk a little bit about that.
Right.
So,
I'll hold on.
Okay.
I feel like I've been holding this one a long time. So
I sit next to him. He has been talking.
Just a couple more minutes, okay? So we know that CTE pathways or diploma credentials help students stand out. So a CTE endorsement lets employers and colleges know that students have gone above and beyond and have received hands-on training and the soft skills necessary to succeed in the labor market. So for each of the CTE pathways that we're gonna talk about, if you see 2021, we brought in the Seal of Biliteracy diploma credential. 22 and 23, we just got approved for a business management and entrepreneurship CTE pathway. So students take 3 credits in the pathway and plus have an internship, and they receive both CDOS and a CTE endorsement. So, Mr. Engel, that will be our first CTE pathway, is business management and entrepreneurship. We're hoping by the end of October that our building sciences and tech ed CTE pathway will be approved. We're working with someone who, she worked for the state, but she left the state and now she's a consultant, and she's working with us on helping to bring these pathways to our school. Human services will be, you can only get one approved at a time. It's a lot of work to get them approved. It takes months to go through this process. Mr. Reveley, I know you sat on one of the committees that, as we were trying to get that first pathway approved. So the second one will be a human services CTE pathway. So each one of these requires staffing, materials, training, and in some instances, facilities. So right now we can do the work we need with our current staffing, but for us to get to some of the future aspirations, we will need to consider building updates, construction, and the hiring of additional staff in the future budget years. We're completing an individual arts assessment pathway application as well. We'll begin piloting that next year with the hopes of implementation in 24-25.
Right.
This pathway is, because I still am not seeing anything on here about any of the trades, construction,
That's
plumbing,
what-
masonry, electrical.
So the building sciences and the tech ed CTE pathway will be just that. It will be
Is
building.
it all of them? Because those are each individual pathways.
It will
as
be a
far as I
building,
understand.
it will be the building tech. So we will need to redo, we're thinking of that wing down where tech is right now. You have to have, a garage door that's big enough to, whatever you're building, to be able to fit in and out of it. So that will be the first pathway that would be similar to CTE as we know it.
We'll find more details for you, but this is one of those things that it has to be considered as we're informing to go through the construction process, our facilities planning committee, and to discuss how we do the right capital improvements to clear the way for these programs. As we know, those technology rooms have not really been updated since the building was built. And you step in there, anybody who's gone to school here, they probably look very similar. And actually, one of them was repurposed many years ago to a classroom and a dark room for photography, rather than what I like to call the dirty rooms, where we do heavy woodworking and metal working. So it will require us to repurpose space that's there. That's always less expensive than building new space. But we'll find out and be able to share with you the specifics of the program so that it's relevant.
But we need to do that soon, because we're talking about this building proposition for next year.
Right. We know it, yes, we understand completely that that information will be shared with the committee so that they can make an informed decision.
I thought that part of our last building capital project was to lay the groundwork for a culinary set in our fax room. Have we abandoned that altogether?
We did not build a culinary studio. We built a fax room. The $250,000 professional kitchen, we opted not to do that. That was going to be down in the tech wing. We instead we redid both of our fax classrooms, so the equipment was updated, larger space, able to do both their sewing and their homeware work in the same space as the kitchen. Before, the kitchen for all the students in the class was literally the size of the tables that you're in. Again, people who've gone here maybe understood that.
So that's not good enough to run a CT culinary program out of?
It isn't anywhere near the caliber of equipment needed to do that. And we very strategically chose not to. And this was on the advice of colleagues at the CTE Center. We should focus on
They want us to send everybody to them. Of course they wouldn't.
I'm going to complete my sentence. To focus on careers that we believe will truly provide both social, emotional, educational, and monetary support. And this is me having a discussion with a lifelong culinary, a chef, who is in a different role there. And he said, there are so many other pathways that may not be the same student passion. People who follow culinary usually do it because they love the work. But it isn't the one that's going to return necessarily for them a lifetime of pleasure, a lifetime of adequate salary, a lifetime to spend with their family, because remember, everyone who works in the kitchen is working when everyone else is not working.
I get it.
So-
I get it. That's not the prime one as far as making a living.
Yeah.
But I haven't seen any progress in any of the other ones in 11 years. That's why I'm getting frustrated. We've been through a huge building project. It got us nowhere as far as CTE is concerned.
And we, in the building project, we specifically chose not to build any CTE stuff. The committee decided not to build any CTE stuff. We have
I
new
was on the
stuff.
committee. I never
Yeah,
saw it.
I thought I remembered the whole idea of that was that it was the groundwork so that we could.
Right.
That it may not have met all the requirements there, but it was supposed to put us in a good position to be able to do that in the future. I just didn't know that we had completely walked away from it.
Walked away from which, Tina? What was the thing that they'd said that would be, what's foundational? What was, do you remember what was the discussion?
I remember hearing weeks of meetings about culinary, that was the groundwork we were laying here. So I understand, I mean, are we saying that nobody goes anymore, that that's I don't, I guess I'm just very confused at this part of the presentation. This seems fairly new.
I mean, I know that part of the project, wasn't in our $30 million project. That was one of the last things that was removed from the project because we didn't have money. But, and I'm gonna go a different direction. We have all this wait list. When is the new building going to open for CT for?
The new building opened in September of 2022. It will not necessarily create additional seats.
That's what I was going to ask. I mean, I didn't know if the new building was going to have more opportunities because of the size of the building.
It is larger, but what they've done is they've closed down some of their Mohan facility, brought the students back to the Albany campus. They also built additional space for their extended nursing programs. They have evening programs for adults that go beyond the scope of the work they do with students during the day. So it is bringing a lot more things in-house, but it did not necessarily create additional seats. And Lisa talked about 13 students on the waiting list. These past 2 years, we've been under-enrolled significantly. We were 15 to 20 kids below our cap, and there are lots of reasons for that as well, for students not choosing to go. And in some instances, in the hybrid year, it was extremely difficult for kids to do the work because they couldn't be there at the times they needed to be there, or shortened day.
Who do we partner with these other CT pathways? Like when you say building sciences or human services, I mean, I know when we did the business management one, we partnered, I don't know if that's the right word, with Columbia Green, correct? Like, do we partner or work with BOCES or other colleges or facilities? Are they all separate? Like,
As part of having an approved CTE pathway, you have to have a credit-bearing course as part of that pathway offering. So that's why we had to have Columbia Green.
right.
So what they're looking at right now is having, I think it's CAD, is it CAD? To be through Hudson Valley for the
Correct.
building
We've discussed
sciences.
that
And to Bray's
before.
question, it'll be mostly focused on construction, this pathway at this point. So the other thing is the human services is something we're talking about. And we would have to look for a college, whatever that looks like, that has some sort of credit-bearing course. The other piece of this too is that it has to have a culminative, is that the word? Assessment that's approved by New York as well. So each one of these has to have a CTE approved assessment that goes with it.
So don't we also have a program that's called New Visions, correct? Right? Is that right? Where we send people like for nursing and things like that? Where would that fit in compared to this human services? Is that something similar or something that we're growing on, or?
So I think it'll be beneficial for us to be able to share with you what each of these is essentially like it's the primer that human services is the primer for medical field, lab work, biology, what else, Fred? Hospitality is another element of it. And so I think it'd be beneficial for us to be able to.
Education as well. The reason why we were going the human services is because it brings in, it gives a lot of students the opportunity to get that CTE credential.
That's fine. I mean, I'm just trying to figure out where it all ties in because, I mean, I've heard like so many good things of the New Visions program of, how this would be similar. Is it a nursing program or a physician's program?
Well, that's why we were going human services, so
So you
that
have
more kids
wider.
could be, it's a wider,
Okay.
wider net,
Question, and maybe I'm not understanding. There's a plan here going out to 24, 25 We were talking about bringing things back in-house, correct? And we have a building project that we're looking to put out in the fall for some sort of vote, correct?
We're looking to bring what back in-house, Bill?
What's that?
We're looking to bring what back?
I don't know what we're looking to bring back in.
Sure.
But we know that once it gets voted on, it's not gonna immediately result in construction happening next fall,
Sure.
next winter, probably not even the summer after that, 'cause it's gotta go through some sort of review. How does that play into this, this plan? And what Bray said with bringing things back into house, what's the plan for that?
I think that you know what is probably difficult is we've never really dug down deeply about that. Just so you know, even if we had built a culinary program here, BOCES would have run it. 99% chance that BOCES would have run it. They would have rented the space from us. We would have still paid to enroll our kids in a BOCES program. The only difference would have been it would have existed here. Welding, automotive,
Right.
those things. If we made the capital investment and we spent $1 million to build an automotive wing on the building,
Right.
BOCES would most likely run it, primarily because they already have the credentialing. They have the ability to find the staff and the pathway.
But it would be local here, we could, if
Yes.
we could fill it with other schools if we needed to, but
But it
you
wouldn't do us
still
any
have to
good.
have the construction project, you still have to have it built.
And a bid.
How does that
And
lay
I
out
think-
in a plan for when we could offer it the first time here?
So, well, again, I think telling you exactly what each of these programs is offering is going to be relevant to that, but I will give you a cautionary tale. Mahanason.
Yeah, what are they doing with their building if they're
That's-
taking all the
That's
classes
the
out?
question.
That's a great
They
question.
What
partnered
is
with
Mohan gonna
BOCES
do with
and
that
spent
building?
all of that money to build that beautiful building, and now BOCES pulled everybody out.
Yeah, but why does it have to be BOCES? Why can't it be run in-house?
For the reasons I just said, the complexity, just these programs that are foundational programs through New York State and with the seal of, for credentialing and diplomas is very, very complex. To be able to start and run a program like this is very, very complex. Not to mention the capital investment. To be able to partner with an agency that already has the know-how, the ability, the access to the curriculum and the staff and the credential.
And the ability to pull out when they feel it.
And sometimes they do.
Right.
And
That's why the in-house part, if you hire your own staff and you've got your own facility, you could do that forever and it only benefits your community.
And I forgot to mention, the thing that makes you able to partner with BOCES to do something that is two schools, us and somebody else. So it only takes one other school. It's the same thing with any service that BOCES does, that because it makes it eligible for aid and makes it eligible for BOCES to do it if there are at least two schools from our area that did it. So if Coxsackie sent students here to do that, or Bethlehem, or Voorheesville, if we had one other school participating, BOCES could be a partnering agency. So it is the two things. So to Bill's question, we're talking about 23, 24. You're exactly right about, so we approve the building project. It's going to happen hypothetically and ideally in the summer of 24. 23, 24 is where we're aiming to do the construction. So there are some things that can happen in the pathway, but without the facility being completed, well, I was going to be able to
Right,
do all
'cause you
those
have
things.
to, it's gotta go to state ed, right?
Absolutely.
You gotta get a review there, that's gonna take time, and then you gotta hire.
That's exactly right.
But, but Bill, some of the courses, like, while we're waiting to get approval as well, we can backdate them. So like the kids could start taking some of the courses that would get them the CTE credential. So even though we're not certified in that pathway yet, once we get certified, the kids, they'll
Completely
backdate
agree.
them.
I just wanna know what the planning is, so if we surveyed the people who would be eligible in that year, they've gotta be younger people now, so that we know what we're building, so that we know what we're developing, so we can offer those things that they can take in advance. That's kind of seems like that's a realistic vision and a plan. Right now, these are like great ideas. Is it a vision or is it?
It's a plan. That's why it's going to be discussions part of the
So
facilities
you're going to
planning.
come to us and say, 100%, this has to be a part of what we're offering in the fall in order to execute that plan.
That is correct.
Okay.
And this is not what happened.
But some of these things are already happening. I mean, these
We're already
are,
teaching
we
much of the
just
coursework.
approved this CT pathway in business management. We have kids already taking these classes.
I'm
They're-
talking
they're
about for
kids-
the ones Brave started this with, we want to bring stuff, we want to be able to bring stuff back in.
Right, but what I'm saying is, like, this building sciences, we are already doing some of these classes.
No, we're not.
Yes, we are.
There's no building science classes going on here at all.
They are, because these.
Tell me one.
CAD. CAD is the class. It's already approved by Hudson Valley. That is going
CAD's
to
a
be.
tech class. It's not a building science class.
But that's what this CT pathway is. That's
Well,
what
then
they're
it's not
bringing
what
in.
I've been talking about
It's
for
not-
11 years.
It's not
There
a
are no
trade.
trades involved in this at all.
I think the concern is.
It's not a
The
trade.
beauty of CTE traditionally has been that it allows students who don't enjoy or participate fully in a classroom setting. That gives them a reason to use their hands, it gives them a way to interact with people outside of the traditional school setting. My concern, and I don't know if I'm articulating it correctly, is yes, this may check the box for CTE, but is it really accomplishing what we're looking for those students who are looking for something alternative?
Absolutely.
I don't think so. I don't think they're trades.
There are elements, there are unquestionably elements that are performance-based, and that's where Tina's going. If we had had these really excellent in-depth discussions in 2017, I think that the way that our project that we finished a little while ago, it would have formulated perhaps differently when we're engaging in this conversation, because we want to ensure that our facilities, which should all be informed by program, and then our budget, which is all be informed by program, is a root discussion as a component of what we're going to do in our facilities meetings over the next few months. So we will share with you the elements of each of these programs, these pathways, so that you can see what does and does not have the engagement, the hands-on, the experiences that Tina's talked about for those students who may not be in a more traditional mindset in the way that they study, so that we can ensure that we are meeting those capacities. And as you heard Lisa talk about, internships, externships, the ability to go out into the field and do work, that is the other thing that's answering the call around that. So our thought is, it is very difficult to build $1 million facility to do welding, $1 million facility to do automotive, and to provide the staff and all that. What we are doing is we are at very little cost creating something that is meaningful to kids who may not have been satisfied in a traditional classroom. They have this foundational thing that gives them skills that are a little bit different than math, science, English, social studies, and the opportunity to go out into the field and do work in these companies locally, or maybe a little farther fetched. But the thing is, where we see schools losing their relevancy is if we're not translating what real life is for kids all the way down to elementary school, the way that we maybe have graduated from high school, where we had a destiny and our parents knew probably where we wanted to go, has made us make a decision. That isn't what kids are doing now. And we've got a little bit of a lost generation. I just came from my son's graduation, college graduation, and had a discussion with these young men and women who are mid-20s, master's degrees. And one in the entire cohort knows what they want to do, and they just finished a master's degree. We need to help and inform our kids before they spend hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars of wasted money and perhaps wasted time to decide where it is they want to go. So we're trying to look at all this as experiential, to apply the content that they've learned throughout the years in a way that's different, and give them an opportunity to make some decisions about maybe what they want to do when they leave and maybe what they don't want to do when they leave. That's our relevancy for schools right now. Bill, you were going to say?
I agree. I just think that there's more. I'll side with Bray. Automotive, electricians, builders, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
I hope we're also considering those, and not just considering them too expensive to do something that we can't envision doing. Right? Because I heard you say $1 million. I get it,
Mm-hmm.
but not everybody's going to grow up and sit in front of a computer for the rest of their life.
And we don't want them to.
And we don't want them to. We want them to use their education, and we want to have the pathway for real jobs that are out there right now.
No question.
And I think that's where, some of these CTE programs like the entrepreneurship and business, so they're taking the classes here and then they're going to go out and do an internship. And just even having like Owens Corning and TCI of New York, and even partnering with TCI, you've heard me mention this before, that there's a grant where they're building this, they're working with Carver and they're building a facility, or Carver's now going to house it, I believe, where kids are going to be able to go in and get training on some of these skills and get hired right out of college. So I don't want to lose sight of the internship program, because I think that really will help kids too. And Tina, speaking to your point, you know, there's kids that don't want to be here all day. So instead of having them have a study hall, what we have done is we've done some rearranging of their schedules too, to try to shift their classes to the morning so that they can go out and work and actually get credit for it for school as well, for those kids who don't want to just sit here, you know, in this building all day long. So we are trying to meet the needs of all of our students in that way. So we have, and just kind of that, this goes nicely into the new electives. So the securing of a second business teacher and the addition of a second art teacher made it possible for us to offer some of these new electives in the 21-22 school year. There's a list of courses we've added for the 22-23 school year, which will help further develop our CT and diplomas pathway. So intro to business, you see that CAD, general ed work experience program. So CAD has been added to DDP this year, and we went through the process to give students college credit for next year. Sports and entertainment has changed to marketing in order to get college credit for our students. And we will be proposing entrepreneurship and career and human services next year for the 23-24 school year in order to prep for the human services pathway. And in 23-24, we aspire to partner with local agencies in addition to using our own staff to offer these courses, which could help to contribute to additional pathways. And celebrations, Career Cafe and Career Pathways, we were awarded the Champions of Change by the New York State School Boards Association. They want to do a presentation to us. They want to send a banner over and do like a little ceremony to celebrate the being a champion of change. So read, process, and apply their understanding. So we have a lot of great things happening. However, we need to remember that challenges that we were faced with for the past 2 years that have had a negative effect on us in a variety of ways. So I'll give you a second to just take a look at that. You know, we had no Regents exams in 20 and 21. There was a lot of absenteeism and illness, a lot of social emotional needs of our staff and students. And although we returned to full school days this year, we had limited access to 10th period for remediation and enrichment. We did have the Regents exams reinstated, although the U.S. history was canceled for today. And we continue to have a lot of social emotional needs for both staff and students.
Access to 10th period, is that just due to busing?
Busing.
So the teachers are there, the enrichment's occurring, just a limited population for those who actually can get rides home?
Correct. And the busing has been better, but up to right up through till February, we did not have 10th period.
All right.
I'm going to let Colleen just talk a little bit.
Did you say you didn't have 10th period?
No.
So
Transportation,
Okay.
transportation, I'm sorry. Transportation, 10th period buses. So
Tina
Colleen's
was
just
gonna
going to
jump out of
talk
her
a
chair.
little bit about some of the areas of growth.
So Dr. Paterni, just shared some of the struggles that we've had, and there's areas that, that have not been learned yet by our students. So there are learning gaps in all discipline areas. Last year, teachers really had a focus on priority standards and not their whole curriculum. So the needs of our students have certainly changed over the years, the past few years. So how are we going to fix this? We recognize that, we need to adapt what we're doing. We need to adapt that Tier 1 instruction, initial instruction, and prioritize a universal design for learning. So the goal of universal design for learning, or UDL, is really to use a variety of teaching methods to remove barriers for learning. It's about building flexibility that can be adjusted to every student's strength and their needs. It's a proactive approach. So this will ensure that students are proactively supported and have equal opportunity to learn, because that initial instruction is going to be more creative and more flexible.
So Colleen mentioned learning gaps in all disciplines. You can see from the slide that absenteeism has been a huge problem for us In 2021, we had 11,025 days of absence for students and 804 for staff, for teachers. And in 21-22, as of June 1st, 10,181 days of absence for students, 856 days of absence for teachers. And that this year has been very difficult with covering our classes. I have held 922 classes as study halls in the auditorium. These numbers also are one of the reasons we propose the addition of a school family coordinator for next year that we will be paid for through the AERP funds, and we're believing the recovery will take longer than 1 year. Meeting the social emotional needs of staff and students. These are some of the things that we've done. The NCBI sessions, which I talked about, were the diversity workshops. We've offered wellness workshops for our staff. We've increased access to social work through our ARP funds. We hired a certified mental health counselor, and we're adding a school family coordinator through ARP funds. But you see what's happening across the country. Like, we are in crisis. We really are, as far as social emotional issues for students. I have a little bit of data for you I'd like to share in regards to the social emotional needs at the high school. This year, approximately 120 students received social work services. 22 were mandated on IEPs, 12 were 504 mandates. All the remaining 85 plus students were referrals or students in crisis. Approximately 20 times this year, students were sent to the hospital to be evaluated for suicidality or homicidality after being screened by social workers. Students are often referred to social workers due to behaviors observed in class. They might include spacing out, crying, excessive absence, anger, and signs of self-harm. When the social workers meet with students, they assess what is underlying the student's behaviors. It could be a history of past or present trauma, including death of a parent or sibling, severe illness of a family member, witnessing or experiencing violence, having a close loved one incarcerated, family addiction or mental illness, hunger or homelessness. Sometimes it's not trauma, but it could be a medical condition. Other times, what the student's experiencing has more to do with environmental and social stressors, such as social isolation, loneliness or shyness, bullying or harassment, fear of pandemic-related illness, social isolation caused by the pandemic, fear of school shootings, and low self-esteem. But regardless of the cause of these students' presentation or behavior, social workers work with the student to develop a plan, which may include outside therapists or evaluators, administrators, guidance, teachers, or other resources in the student's community to assist. It often includes strategies to ask for and receive emotional support, talk positively to oneself. They teach self-regulation skills to our students. They also do conflict resolution, restorative circles. They help with our training of both our staff and our students. They teach mindfulness. And this year, the social workers really have been busier than ever before due to the global pandemic and its hit on mental health, particularly on our adolescents. So the next slide, I lose sleep over this every day. I feel like it's a tragedy. 23 of our students will not cross the stage this year. There may be some that are still enrolled, but we lost 13 this year alone. Some students are having a significant problem re-engaging in school. And every student that we lose is almost 1% of our graduation rate. We looked at with the counselors, we went back and we looked at every student that has dropped out, and the majority of them had mental health issues, lack of motivation. 2 were in the virtual academy. They didn't want to come back to school, so they went to the virtual academy, and despite everyone's efforts, they just could not get through, and they did not want to come back. Attendance, just the refusal to come to school, and parental disengagement. So, when I think of the things that we have all done, like we've gone to homes, we've had counselors, we've offered tutoring, we've done so many things to try and re-engage these students. But we still lost 23 of them. And the fact that we lost 13 this year. And we still have a couple right now that are on the bubble. So we're, it's the last Hail Mary, right? For a couple of them. We have them being tutored, and we're believing that they're going to get across the stage. But with that being said, our graduation rate, just our school, this isn't even including the district graduation rate with 3 out-of-district students. Our school will have a graduation rate, if we get everyone across from now forward, 80%.
Lisa, these students that we recognize this year as falling off this year, or was this something that we've been tracking since their freshman year and they've been slowly behind and we've never caught them up?
Some of them have been students that have been identified. We've done every intervention possible for them, and yet still they didn't make it. But many of them are, I would say, the mental health issues that we've seen. I can, in my whole career, cannot remember losing 13 students in 1 year. And that is a very scary thought to me. 13.
And to add to that, primarily students who don't graduate from high school usually get stuck in 9th and 10th grade. In other words, they fail to accumulate a minimum of 11 credits to get to the level of juniorhood. They have trouble with algebra or science, biology. They don't make it beyond that struggle, and they age out. So they're dropping out, which would have been their junior year and sometimes their senior year, out of desperation that they're not going to make it. That's not the case this year. These students are eligible, or most of them are eligible or on their way to a credentialed Regents diploma. And remember, these last 2 years, they didn't even have to make it through a Regents. They got to pass if they passed the class. So that's why, as Lisa identified, there are other elements at play here. That the usual ones are frustration because I just can't get through. My peers are graduating. There's no point in me finishing. That's not what's going on this year.
No. We do have 2, though. This is a little success. Sometimes we have to hang on to those little successes. We have 2 students that started in the OG program, and they were so behind, they failed their whole 9th grade year, and they were able to catch up, and they're graduating with their cohort this year. So
yeah, I think that's what I'm focused on, is that if 13 dropped out, and they're close, but they're about a year away because they dropped out this year, that's different than we've identified the other 10 in 9th and 10th grade. We instituted OG 2 years ago now, I believe, which was supposed to be the vehicle for getting them on path to graduate, and it sounds like you've had success with 2 of them, or that maybe it was 15, maybe it was 12, not 10, I don't know. But that's what we ask for data all the time. We've been asking about OG, we've been asking about resource room, all of those things. That's what's important to us, is to understand how much impact it's having and what kind of investment are we making in it to make sure that it's something that we should be doing, or maybe we need to pivot to something else. I'm not, we pivot to a lot of new things all the time, but that's the data, and I think each one of these board members has said that's the data we want to hear about, and it is sad to hear that we have 23 students that aren't going to cross. I'm hoping that we're going to make efforts through our credit recovery program there to get the 13 close and not give up on the 10 and work with them also.
And we continue to try, Bill, but these are some kids that just, no matter what we've done, it's almost that give up mentality. And I think that's the real struggle. I do get choked up when I talk about it, because some of these situations, and we're public, and I'm not gonna, but the situations at home, and I can't even imagine being 17 years old and having nobody, not one person in your life other than the people at school that care about you, that you have nowhere to go, you have nowhere to live.
Right.
In the fall of this school year, Lisa and the high school staff shared out reach out room and OG Operation Graduation statistics. And when we begin next year, we'll do the same thing. We'll share out the data of number of classes passed of students who were receiving the extra help, number of students who were able to graduate on time or make it through.
Casey did write a little, she gave me a little blurb to write, to talk a little bit about OG. If you want me to read it, I'd be happy to read what she wrote. She wrote a nice little paragraph. It is on my phone. Or I can just send it to all of you. I'll send it to you, because it really is a nice little write-up that she wrote about OG. And I'll just speak briefly about reach out rooms. We've been working with our CCSs and our building leadership team. And one of the issues with the reach out rooms is that the people that were doing the reach out rooms may not have been math and science people. Like, a lot of the humanities teachers were the ones that, you know, had that spot in their schedule, and it was difficult to give assistance with the science and the math. So what we did this year is, because again, the learning gap, so what we're gonna do for September is we've created a math lab and a science lab during lunches. So 4, 5, 6, and 7, it will be manned. And so students that are struggling in math will be assigned to those math labs, but also it will be open to any students in the building who need help that can go there on their lunch to get some help. So that was like a little switch that we did to the reach out rooms. We were able to, again, not ask for more staffing, but just reallocate what we have to give that extra support to help fill the learning gaps that we're seeing.
So, to kind of piggyback on what Bill was saying, I know last summer, coming off of COVID, there was a big push and a lot of emphasis on trying to offer some of those intensive, like, summer academies and catch up where they could or reinforce where they could. Are we seeing fruits of that this year? And what does this summer look like?
Oh, I think we definitely have seen the fruits of that for especially like the 9th and 10th graders.
Right.
We had 100% success rate in our summer school. So we'll definitely be offering that again for some of those students to get caught up. So they were, actually, I can't remember the exact number, but I think out of 50 classes that we offered, 49, they received credit in 49. So maybe it wasn't 100, it was close to 100%, and most of the kids took 2 classes. So that was very successful, and we will do that again. And the other thing, we were not able to, like Mike Kerrigan was our person who did our credit recovery for us last year, not this, and he was supposed to do it this year, but then we had the shortage in math, and so again, we weren't able to get a math teacher. So he will be back in that role of doing credit recovery. So we're hoping that will help as well, because he did a great job with it.
So to look for the future of our sophomores, juniors, what of these really challenging situations, what are we looking like in the next coming years? I mean, I know you put the 2 interventions of the specialists to come in and reinforce, but is this the start of something, or is that a blip on the screen?
I'm going to answer that, Tina, because you're kind of asking the question for the answer I was going to give at the end. Here's what we don't know. We have an entire field, a profession that nationwide has not been able to necessarily reverse the downward spiral of the whole system. And we see that well beyond schools too. You know, go try and get a plumber or go try and eat in a restaurant. It's closed because no one's willing to come out and do the work right now. We have to think and frame what's happened to this senior class in one of 2 contexts. Have the high schoolers had such a difficult time with this because they led an entire life of what we would consider to be normalcy, and then were challenged and decimated socially and emotionally in their final 2 years of their career, where they just said, I'm not going to do it anymore. And everyone else is going to be fine because it's their normal? Or has this remapped every single child in our care, and how are we going to reach all the way down to kindergarten? And you've heard all of you who have friends who teach the younger grades or have children in the younger grades. The most heart-wrenching thing for us was our younger kids not having access to social skills, the basic foundational skills that will help them be successful as a human being. They were deprived of. We don't have the answer right now. What we have to do is, and we're advocates, and Colleen has said this before, and I'll echo that, every single child has an IEP, an individual education plan for them from kindergarten through their senior year. At least one caring adult knows what that map looks like, and is going to ride herd on that child from the minute they enter school in kindergarten until the time they leave here. Because not all of them have parents that are there doing that work, or have parents that understand what that work looks like. But if we don't retool and remap the way that we've provided this service to our communities, we're going to lose 13 kids a year, every year for the next however long this takes to turn it around.
Maybe I can say it differently. Do we have data on the sophomore and junior class? Do we know that based upon where they are in what year, that they have enough credits that if they progress along the normal path that they will graduate? We should be able to project, is this senior class different or significantly different than junior, sophomore, or even freshman, and where they are? You can heat map it. You can say these are the ones that are at risk. If we lose this, we will be in the same boat that we were with the senior class. That we can do. That we should be able to do today.
We do that, and we have it.
Was that what you were asking about? Was something like that?
And here's the issue. That almost didn't matter at all for the kids who chose to.
There's risk with everything.
Yeah.
But we can at least identify and say this is where we're at, because if the trouble comes between junior and senior year, and it's a mental health issue, we can focus resources at that. If it's sophomore year and it's something else, we can focus resources and we can measure off that. You can measure off anything. And I agree, we want to start as a kindergartner or a pre-K. I get that, right? I get that. But what we're talking about is we see a drop of from 91.7% in 1920 down to 80%, right? If everybody makes it. That's 10, 11% of our population. We should be focused on where you should be able to project and forecast out. This is what happens.
We do every year.
I think I'll speak to that a little bit.
Yeah.
So we have done that, and where we generally focus is on, you can predict if the kids don't get 5 credits for, in their 9th grade year. That's where we've been focusing on. That was how I feel like we raised the graduation rate for a couple of years, because we were focusing on that. And we did things like credit recovery, and we used the reach out rooms to try to make sure that the kids were getting the credits that they need. I think this was an anomaly, Bill, this year. Like I just said, like in my entire career, I've never seen this, never.
Right.
And I hope to never see it again, but we can't predict what this pandemic has caused. The social emotional issues are, and it's not just affecting our students, but like this vicarious trauma that we're seeing is affecting our faculty and staff as well. So I think having these extra resources and continuing to support our students and our families, like families are hurting. There's, so many adults that are so distraught and broken that they're having a hard time supporting their children. And I think that it all has culminated into this.
I think where we can help as a school district is that we can tell them if it's 5 credits a year, and by sophomore year you don't have 10 credits, we can target those families who could say, is there something that's going on how can you help support your student to make sure that they're on the path to graduate?
Yeah, and I think this community liaison officer is going to be, did I say the right, I probably didn't say it right, family coordinator, but I think having them as part of this and someone that knows the community and is able to go out and, really make those connections, I think is going to be integral to this as well.
Okay.
So Bill and Tina, for all of you, here's the data that we'll share with you when we open the school year next year. Reach out room and OG outcomes, information about outcomes. Students on track for graduation. That's one slide.
Yeah.
Freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. Who's on track with the minimum number of credits? We know where they are in reach. There's benchmarks for that. That's easily done. And we do follow that, but it's great to see it at a glance. And so we'll open the school year with that. And summer credits.
The mapping of that new coordinator position. What is the objectives of them, and what are some of the deliverables we'll be looking for? What are the interventions they're going to be focused on with families that are disengaged?
I think I missed that part of the slide.
I think we should do that beforehand, before September. So
That'd be
we've
great.
already started to work on roles and responsibilities for that position.
I mean, I know the last 2 years have just been horrible. We can't do the usual. We haven't done parent nights that are traditional, we haven't brought things together, we haven't celebrated the way we used to. What does that look like going forward? Are we gonna be able to really hit the ground running in September to try to, I mean, I know it sounds Pollyannish, but do we start out on the feet that we're back to the way we used to be? We want you here, we want your families here, we wanna hear your stories. There's gonna have to be a real campaign to repair that fiber because the school's been out of it. So, like you said, kids and families that have disengaged, they've moved on. That chapter's closed for them, and it's unfortunate, but how do we correct that going forward? No.
Any other questions?
We haven't gotten to the questions yet.
Is this a scenario, though, where that percentage could potentially go up with the cohort over the next couple of years? Like if they were to do a,
Yeah.
what's the test? Sorry. Like your, thank you.
Yeah, GED does not.
It doesn't count.
But if they can, sorry, I don't understand. If they finish in 5 years or 6 years, those do.
That's what I was thinking.
Okay.
A couple years ago, is it a couple years ago now, just coinciding with the beginning of the pandemic, New York State realigned its coding for value points for a graduate. It was, you are a graduate or you're not. Regents diploma, local diploma. At the time, there was an IEP diploma. And they remapped all of that, and instead, every child that graduates is a number of points. Someone who takes international baccalaureate and graduates with an advanced Regents diploma might be 2 points. A student who just graduates with a Regents diploma might be 1.5 points. A student who graduates with a local diploma might be 1 point. And there's like 5 or 6 things on each of the list. A student who graduates with a GED or just CDOS is 0.5 point. So they do have a point system, and I will share that with you too. The reason why that's relevant is if we're watchdogging graduation rates and student success and outcomes, those points all are extremely relevant. The one thing that's really noteworthy about it, and I'm very grateful, is New York State is starting to acknowledge that it's not just Regents exams that spells success. It includes internships, externships, work-based learning, international baccalaureate, AP classes, college level classes. It includes that on the menu that gets a kid from 0 to 2 possible points when they graduate from here. And that's how school rankings will be established for New York State in the coming years. But it's a one-pager. It's a really neat sheet to look at, and it is relevant because it really fits in with all the things that Dr. Paterni and Colleen have shared with us.
If I were to hear that of those 20% that didn't walk the stage, that 10% of them did get their GED, regardless of those points, I want to celebrate they can put that on an application. So it's still important that we can possibly reach out to them and see if we can help them get that.
To walk across the stage, I'll hold a graduation in August for them. So, yes, I agree, Tina. If we could, get those kids to finish, trust me when I tell you, we are trying everything we possibly can.
Because I know the points as a district is amazing, and that's what we have to strive for, but the ultimate ability to get a job without that GED is horrific.
So thank you for the additional services that you are providing, because I really believe it's necessary in this time. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Only 2 more presentations tonight, so let's. We have no hearings and petitions, correct? We need a motion for one or all of the business considerations. I have a second. Mr. McFerrin. Any discussion?
6.5. Any donations?
6.5.
Grant from
The
Stewart's.
Stewart
Thank you.
Foundation grant for A.W. Becker for the backpack program.
Thank
Seems
you,
like they
Stewart's.
come up like every week. They just give money to a different school for backpack programs. So thank you, Stewart's. Anything else? 6.4. Joanne? Or-
Yep, we, it was identified earlier this year, because we do work with NYSERDA, and they reviewed the bills, that there had been a mistake in billing from National Grid for approximately a year. So this was, we made a transfer to cover that, and it's been corrected. It was an actual, the meter wasn't working. And the odd part was we had a change in staffing. We fixed that now at our level. But National Grid didn't catch it either. We actually, by us identifying it, made them aware of it. So it has been corrected going forward, but that's the reason we had to make that transfer. It was $56,000 worth of charges over a year.
It's their responsibility for that meter to work properly, or is it ours?
It's their responsibility, but we should have identified it on a bill. And since then, so what we did before we even paid it is we spent a lot of time on the phone determining how they were going to come up with that charge for our school district. So they gave a printout of everything that they had done in previous years, and they did it based on an average because the data was lost.
So there is no hard number?
No, well, there was a hard number, but based on their average.
Right.
So it wasn't based on a meter reading,
Right.
but that's been corrected.
Okay. Anything else?
Sounds like we did them a nice thing. They
Yeah.
oughta, maybe they oughta replace that or fix that big transfer thing out in front of the school for us. I mean, theoretically, we could've said, what are you talking about? It must've been working, not on our meter, not our problem. We didn't, we did what we should've done, but maybe they could turn around and, on their end, kinda take care of that big electrical issue that's.
We're working on some of the electrical problems with what the voters just approved in May, so that some of that will be addressed.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion's passed.
Motion for 7-1 through 7-18.
Okay, do you have a second, Mr. McFerrin? Do you have any discussion?
Any retirements?
Nope.
No, I'd like to do no retirements. Any discussion now? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion's passed. 8 is informational items only. I have nothing to report on tonight. Anybody else have anything they would like
I
to?
just wanted to throw out, National Honor Society had their induction this week. It was a nice ceremony. Lots of kids inducted, lots of students that were already in National Honor Society did a great job. So I just like to celebrate that. It was a good night.
Piggyback that with the National Junior Honor Society. It was very good.
Okay.
Keep all those kids in it.
Anything else? We will turn it over to Dr. Bailey.
Share the communication chart that I mentioned was in the school calendar. We placed it conspicuously at the top of the letter that's gone on to families these last 2 weeks, and shared it on our website again. As far as we had talked a little bit about transportation and holding a community forum around transportation, what we've decided to do internally instead is to do a community survey, notifying people what the steps are that we've taken thus far around transportation. In other words, the advertising strategies that we've used, our staffing numbers over the last few years, and asking for their input in that manner. Essentially allowing people offline to contribute their thoughts and ideas around it. We couldn't for the life of us think of what a forum would look like. First of all, it wouldn't necessarily touch as many people as we needed to, but what would the discussion sound like? Why would someone come to an event to say, have you tried the newspaper? So that's why we thought a survey would be more vibrant and be able to collect people's information around that. That doesn't disclude the possibility of doing follow-up afterward, but we thought that would be a good first swing around that. And we have a lot of grade level and club trips going out into the community and around the Capital District over the next 4 weeks. For those of you with children probably know that. And we're excited to actually be able to return to be able to do that after 2 years of basically staying close to home.
Okay.
I just want to say, and because you brought it up at the last meeting about communication and all of that stuff, and I mistakenly, I get inundated with emails, but the weekly letter that Dr. Bailey sends out to staff, to families and whatever, has a bunch of information, and you just have to get through it. There's links to everything and anything that you would want to know, and I did not realize that it was as informative as it was, so I appreciate that very much. That was something, as far as communication goes, was a big improvement, I think, if you use the tools.
Of all the things, the communication committee has met this year a number of times, and of all the things that we talked about, the website, the push notifications, emails, text messages, they identified the letter, at least during the pandemic, to be the most relevant thing because everything changed on a weekly or bi-weekly basis. So it was very important then. So we've tried to keep it timely, and then we've improved how we bullet things so that people can see at a glance. If they don't want to read about the 8 things, they don't have to read the letter. So we will continue. We have another communications committee meeting in a few weeks, and we'll continue to discuss how we improve that. And Deidre is foundational in getting that information together every week.
And maybe just a suggestion to somebody coming new into our community or a new parent for a kindergartner, maybe that's something that's given out at screenings or enrollments. Hey, this is where you can go for all of our information, something like that would be a suggestion I would have.
They would get the email once they're registered, correct?
If you're
Well,
you may not know.
you might not. You might
Well,
not.
once I think their kid registers for school, I think it automatically will go
Nope.
to them.
No, you gotta fill out this form.
Nope.
Got
I'm
it.
starting at kindergarten again, just so you know.
No one will get anything until their child's active. So it'll happen after the school year starts, but doing it right up front is a great idea.
I'm in the sunset of
Okay.
And many of the questions they're looking for answers are before they step foot inside.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I
Right.
mean, like somebody brand new to the community or somebody that's stressing.
So maybe in our communication letter, I guess it would go to everyone. We would have to tell people how to sign up.
We also put them on the
Yeah.
website weekly. It's the first news article every Friday. It's on there. It says letter to family and staff. We also do it in push notifications, so if they sign up for that, and anybody can sign up for the app, whether they're in the school district or not, and that would give them access to it as well.
Okay.
So we'll recommend that. Thanks.
Good.
I just want to go back to the transportation forum. I hear what you're saying about a survey. I think that's a valuable tool. I do think that a public forum is very important. I think there's a lot of emotion around this. There's a lot of exhaustion around this. I think every one of us hears on a regular basis, especially as you just hear that one of our major challenges was not having remedial period because of busing issues. I think people need an outlet that we can become more positive in, but that requires more than just checking boxes. People want to be heard about this, and I think we have to find a better way for them to hear, for us to hear them, but also to share the interactions, because people hear that we put ads out, they hear that we put signs out, and we have. These are all heroic things that we're trying to, and occasionally it's fruitful. But there are people that have really big ideas that we probably have already bounced around, and there's a reason why it can't happen. We're not getting that message out. It looks like it looks to many people as if we're not doing much. And I don't agree with that, but I'm also not the spokesperson on that. So that's where the public forum piece could really be valuable.
We'll talk about it in the communications committee.
There's going to be a bunch of people yelling at you because you're doing buses.
All right.
I mean,
You don't have bus drivers. We have buses.
we have buses, right? We just don't have drivers. And I mean, that's all, I hear about it all the time. How come they're not running? How many times can you explain? There's nobody to drive them. I mean, I don't know why we would want to sit and listen to them yell at us about that again.
We'll talk about it.
If you got a good idea, send it in writing, and then we'll call you up and we'll talk about it. And, something other than just all the angry people coming and yelling because the buses aren't running.
Yeah, and if people don't feel like they're heard, they start voting down propositions. So
Well, that's their right.
It is, but being
And you know what? If they vote down a
proactive
bus
is
proposition, we don't
what
have
our
buses.
prerogative is.
We got plenty. We don't have drivers to drive the ones we have, so. I'm just tired of hearing people say the same negative thing over and over and never offer any kind of solution.
That's the thing.
And when we give them possible solutions, they just ignore them.
But that's what we should be encouraging. If you're gonna come, you don't come yelling at us unless you're coming with some kind of creative solution too.
But the problem is that's the bridge we're not bridging. People come with what they think are valuable solutions, but they may not be able to be carried to fruition. So what's happening is people are like, I gave them ideas, they don't do anything with it.
So without having that forum where we can say, these are all the things that we've explored incentives and contract negotiations and this, and this, and we don't have to give specifics because there are things that are not for the public realm, and that has to be respected. But people need to understand there's a lot of moving pieces that are going on, and it's exhausting, and we're beating our heads against the wall because we've all had our own kids affected by bus cancellations and route cancellations and inconveniences, and there's nobody spared on that. But there's a lot of negative energy about it because it happens year after year after year. So I agree. I don't want to hear here where we can't have an exchange. There needs to be a positive forum with rules that allows people to have that conversation and hear back. Because the survey is not two-way, it's one-way. And I think, and if you hold it and two people show up, at least there's an effort being made to bridge that communication gap. But people are using all the other methods of communication that are not positive. And that spills over into everything else we do. It forms distrust. It's forming a lot of feelings that this district is not addressing the needs. And we know they are, but we're not telling our story out in public. So
you guys got to get on Facebook because that's where
I'll do it.
I don't do it, but that's
I'll be
where it's
done.
happening.
I'll be done. in a
Again,
couple weeks. I'll do
it
it.
needs to be constructive. It needs to be.
But that's where it is. That's what you're saying. It's on social media. It's not in public anywhere. It's not in person anywhere. It's all this nonsense on social media, and there's no way to combat that unless somebody from the district gets on there and tries to dispel it. Won't be me.
No, we'll get on MySpace.
I don't know how you combat Facebook. I really don't. I don't know how you come up with anything to dispel the nonsense that goes on there.
Because when you hear people on Facebook who puts that out there as a blanket, you want to be able to point them to another direction. And no one of us can do that because that's not our role, but we can say, here's a forum, here's a listing, here's the resources that we've put towards it, here are things that we've tried that have not failed. People, and it's redundant and it's repetitive, but otherwise it spills into all the other good work we're doing.
I get it, but I feel like we've done that. How many times in these meetings?
Nobody thinks that we've done it. Nobody thinks that we're doing anything positive. So if they come to us with a problem, we say, here's all of the things.
But haven't we done that? Haven't we sat in these
everything.
meetings and explained every single thing that we've tried? Joanne's done it time and time again. These meetings are public. They're out there. They can go back and look at them anytime they want. I know they don't, but why does that mean we have to have another meeting so that we can invite them in? They're welcome here. I mean, if you want to do it, fine. I just don't see the point in burdening our administration with another forum that is going to be the same 2 people or the same 10 people yelling at them.
We'll talk to the communications committee about it. It's a diverse group of people that they have children, they have the experience that Tina's talking about, and they can maybe help better decide what's the right pathway to head.
Yeah, we all have kids here too, so.
Yeah, I know.
Okay. Turn it over to Mr. Engelhardt.
I'm actually going to turn over to Mr. Schrum.
Okay.
If that's okay.
You're on the spot.
Sure.
Since we are.
This is my section of the meeting, so I won't come
Skipping?
All right. So I was not necessarily a part of all of this, but I'm going to try to piece it together and explain it the best that I can. And I'm going to give you a Reader's Digest version, and I'm going to give you one example, and then you guys give me some feedback and tell me where you want me to go with it, and then I can come back again and maybe go in depth a little bit further. So in 2013, RCS partnered with CS Arch and New York Light Energy to create this solar initiative in an effort to utilize green energy in the district. The hardware and the labor costs for the projects were paid for by New York Light Energy, and that's how we were able to capitalize on the federal tax credits and the nice sort of money that were available. Light Energy changed hands a couple times during the course of our time with them, and in October of 2019, they pretty much went bankrupt, and they operate now under Light Energy 2, and they're administered by Kyocera. So each site, each school consists of an array of solar panels, racking, cabling, inverters that turn the power from DC power to AC power so we can utilize it, and a PLC to monitor the power that's being created. Each site is sized for different levels of production, and that is in part due to the size of the roof, in part due to the size of the power that's available within the building. Programmable logic controller, so it's got a set of variables.
So it's a computer's thing or something?
Yeah, it's a computer
I thought
thing.
it was a person.
Yeah, no, not a person.
Quick question, sorry.
Yes, sir.
We're allowed to use this power, we're not backfeeding it into the grid?
Okay, so there's, well, I'll get to that, so.
Then it's not worth it.
Loaded question.
There's an hour.
Loaded
Sorry, I didn't want to-
question.
It's on.
There's no storage. Whatever's produced is either used or potentially wasted or potentially given back to National Grid. And that varies by site. So all the hardware is owned at this point by Light Energy 2, Kyocera. The equipment is monitored on a daily basis. So all this equipment is internet connected. It all reports back to them. They have a full data log of what we're producing on a daily basis. Some of you remember we had the monitors in the main office. That went away with the whole Light Energy 2 changeover. And that is just not an available option to us at this point. But we do have a dashboard where we can see what's being produced. It's just not formatted in a way that's conducive to displaying it on a screen in the main lobby. So they do, they continuously monitor that through the PLC, through the internet connectivity, and then they do a yearly on-site visual inspection. They have a preventative maintenance program that they follow. They do some visual inspection work by drone as well. There's been a couple times they've come out and said, hey, we just want to let you know we're going to be flying a drone, going up on the roof, taking a look at the solar panels. It's actually, it's a pretty interesting process. But that's, just a quick overview of how they're maintaining that equipment. There's not currently a replacement schedule for any of this equipment. The solar panels do have a limited lifespan, but they, according to Kyocera, they believe that they will last the full 20 years of the contract. There is, they do acknowledge that the panels potentially produce less electricity year after year. They do have that degrading power output as part of their life cycle, but they didn't have a spec I could reference or anything like that to really justify how much money we could potentially lose or how much production we could potentially lose over time.
The thing we want to know is this worthwhile to us? Do we benefit from it, or have we wasted?
Well, the good news is we're stuck with it. We are in a 20-year contract, and the only out clause is if they fail to produce power for 180 days. That's from my layman's interpretation of it.
They would be responsible for decommissioning it when the time is right? I don't know
Yeah,
if that's the right
yes.
word, but.
So it doesn't hurt us at all?
It's not hurting us.
We don't know if we're making a whole lot of it.
Yeah, so I'm gonna
Saw
get
the numbers, but
I'll get to that.
like one number is probably all we need.
Okay, so
Or minus.
the inverters, which are the big boxes that are on the side of the buildings, I'm sure you've seen them, the one here, especially on the front of the high school. It's by the cafeteria loading dock. They have a lifespan of somewhere in the 10-year range. They don't have a replacement cycle for those, but they do, as part of their monitoring, their active monitoring of the system, if they identify that there's an issue with that, they're going to replace it. So each site is bound by a power purchase agreement, which is the 20-year contract, and that lays out the costs that the district incurs for purchasing power from Light Energy. So there's a yearly 1.75% escalation cost that can vary if the utility rate changes. It can shoot up to 5% or 2.5% if the utility rate increases more than 5% over a 12-month period. And if the production is below the 90% forecasted value, then we would be issued a credit. So at the end of our 20-year term with this company, we have the option to remove the system, maintain the system, and negotiate a new rate, or potentially negotiate the purchase of the system. And as of last month, we are currently on the 9th year of the agreement. So did anybody have any questions on that?
We buy the electricity from them?
We are buying the electricity
All of our electricity?
at every site, yes. That's correct.
Because they put this equipment on our roof
That's correct.
at no cost to us?
Correct.
So we can never lose money on this deal. Like if they became more expensive than the power company, we'd just say, no, we're not buying it from you, we're gonna buy it from them.
I don't know if we would be allowed to do that under the terms of the contract, but potentially.
I'm just trying to see, is there any negative to this at all? Like, there's no way we can lose on this, right?
In theory, no.
Okay.
So in 10 years from now, we have to have this discussion to decide whether we're gonna keep it or not, or pay for it, or.
We are paying monthly for this.
We are, and I'm gonna get to that.
Okay, I want to be clear, we're not getting anything for free.
Oh, I wouldn't expect that.
No, we're paying for the electricity.
We are paying.
We're paying monthly for electricity that we would potentially use regardless of the fact. I think maybe we could have, I don't know if we would have lost, but it might have been, I don't know if it would have been even close. During the pandemic, when we had, especially at the elementary schools, like absolutely nothing going on and there's very little current draw at that time, it
So
might
you're
have
saying
been.
we were paying for that electricity but may not have been using it?
It's possible.
Okay.
That would require further investigation, but it's possible.
Okay.
That would be probably the only instance I could think of where we may have been negatively impacted by it. So I took, any other questions before I move on?
So we're paying for the equipment isn't, we're just paying for.
We are just paying for power.
electricity.
Correct. So I took the bus garage as a comparative example here because that's probably the easiest to relate to. It's the most like your home. If you had solar at home, this is the closest example we can get to. So I took a 12-month period and broke it out. And I know some of this looks a little bit complicated, but basically we have on that spreadsheet, we have an actual monthly kilowatt generation. We have a forecasted monthly, and then we have a variance between the two. Regardless of any of that information, we're paying a contracted rate in the next column. And then that contracted rate is broken out to a monthly value for a total of $5,540.59. That rate is in the power purchase agreement, which is on the next page, and you'll see that it increases that 1.75% each year. We have in the next column the utility kilowatt per hour cost, which if you look in just about in all cases in the spreadsheet is higher than we're paying for the solar kilowatt hour energy cost. So the solar production, if you take the monthly amount, actually the monthly amount generated, so if you look at May, the 12,836 kilowatts, and you multiply that across the contract rate, that's where we come up with the $843 if we were purchasing that from National Grid. So the 12,836 kilowatts purchased from Leam Kyocera cost us $782, but if we were to purchase it from National Grid, it would be $843.
When?
Potentially. So if you look down, I mean, you can see that on a monthly basis where, our lowest month, we saved $20. But if you take that across, the entire year, we're saving approximately, $2,400 between the difference between the solar production and the solar production actual and the utility cost. And then the other interesting thing, so like I said, this would be the closest example to your home. So this is, the bus garage is net metered. So that meter can actually run backwards. So we can send some of that excess power over to back to National Grid. So if you look just on the electrical supply, for some of those months, you'll see that it was $0 with kilowatt hours going back to National Grid. which resulted in a credit on our bills for those months.
All the buildings do that?
No, it doesn't appear that way. So still have to do some more research. It gets tricky because like I said, the bus garage is the closest one to like what you would have with a residential or small business, electrical service. Here, we're secondary metered with our own transformer. Middle school, we're primary metered. We own that equipment. So those are different rates with different delivery charges, and it starts to get really tricky. So before I go down that rabbit hole of reporting all that information to you, I just want to make sure I understand exactly what you want to hear. So I figured this would be the easiest way to break it down.
I just want that last number. Bus garage saved us $1,272 over the course of a year. There you go.
It actually saved us $3,758 over the course of the past over the past 12 months. So if you look down to the bottom, so there's
That's awesome. It's the combo. It's $4,000 in a year on one building.
Yeah. And essentially, we don't do anything to maintain any of that.
That's
so
a no-brainer. Man, that's a small building.
Do you have any storage units?
it is.
And we didn't burn any tires to do it, so that's a win. Anything else?
So the other buildings
Okay.
would theoretically be more savings, and especially if they could send stuff back to the National Grid, which we don't know yet.
That's correct. In just a quick look at the bills, the other ones weren't net metered, so I don't think we're sending it back. But we also have Peter B, which is a different utility, and I haven't had a chance to take a look at those bills yet. So I can give you a spreadsheet that just kind of summarizes everything if that's really all you're after, or we can get a little bit deeper into it.
That's all I care.
Okay. So basically,
Those numbers anyway.
so I included on the next page, there is they gave us an estimated breakdown of what we could expect to save over a 20-year period of the contract. We're, in last year, we're $980 different from that. We're producing slightly less power, slightly less savings than what they were anticipating we would, but we're close. I did attach the high school power purchase agreement, so you could see, what the potential savings at least were advertised as being. So last year, if everything goes according to plan, we should have saved, $8,000 there by purchasing solar from Liam Kyocera as opposed to. It doesn't include delivery charges and all that other stuff. We're talking about just purchasing kilowatt hours as, pure energy.
Bill, do you know, is there the potential that we'll see a greater gap in our savings if electricity follows the path of the other types of energy that are happening, what's happening with energy right now? If a kilowatt goes up 50%, will our kilowatt hour remain the same? From the solar, or
yeah, we're locked in on this contract. So if the utility cost goes up, and and we're still paying our contract amount, then we're saving money.
Okay.
I think in the beginning that could be changed if utility.
It can, but it still holds. It can only go up.
Okay.
There's a cap on that. It can only go up 2.5%.
It won't go up this thing.
When we plug all those electric buses in the next 3 years,
We're gonna be smiling around.
we're gonna save lots of money.
We're gonna put some more solar panels up.
Right across the football field.
So does anybody have any questions? Is there anything you want further clarification on?
No, there was so much detail that checked our boxes. It just, as long as we're not on the negative side, as long as it seems to be no harm, no foul.
From the deep dive at the bus garage, definitely not. From the quick look I took at the other buildings, I don't think so. I can put something together and just, and have it included in the board packet, and then if you have any questions, I can come back and talk about it.
The plus or minus, I think, is really.
Yeah, don't kill yourself.
Don't
know how busy you are. This is low on the totem pole.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's just like what you did right here, these couple of lines right there. That's all.
Okay.
Like, I would have not asked my questions, but great.
Okay.
Up until tonight, we thought maybe we were in the hole.
We didn't even know if the things were on.
Or working,
Right. They are working.
That's awesome.
And if nothing else, they're holding some of our roofs that are in great shape, they're holding them on, so, we're.
Wow, we got a win. Check that one. I was here when they put those in.
That was the key.
Okay.
We're good. Thank you. Thank you for staying.
Thank you.
Okay,
So I'm not going to do a deep dive into libraries.
That's
if that's
great.
okay.
Yeah, I think that's
I
good.
think the lesson for tonight is we will do anything to get something off of old business. That's the lesson for tonight. It is not, solar panels are not tied to curriculum. I did check into that as well, because I think you had brought that up. You did.
Sorry.
I did want to mention, just real quick, the robotics was going on tonight, so thank you for all of the families that came out and the teachers and community members that supported that. Lots of art fairs and some really exciting STEAM activities that were going on at A.W. Becker. They had a science and engineering fair that was really well attended, and they were excited about their school-wide STEAM Day, which I think we had talked about at our last meeting. They have an awesome PBL going on right now in their 3rd grade. I'll talk more about that next week. Talked about National Honor Society. Thank you for bringing that up. Peterby Girls are doing a 5K, Girls on the Run. It's a girl empowerment run that they're doing. So thank you to Miss Berry, Miss Rice, Miss Dwyer for heading that up. Done.
It's great.
Bill is me, I'm good.
Mrs. Moran's good, okay. We have no new business. We're good with old business. Anybody else? Sure, go ahead.
The use of the display cabinets in the main lobby now with all the art stuff is the best use of those since we put them in. So thank you to the art program for actually utilizing those. I'd like to see that continued, whether we use them for art or literature or whatever it may be, right? So at least they're being used versus just empty cases. So thank you for that.
High school, that's from the art show that happened the night of our school budget vote. And what the high school leadership have tried to do is assign one display case to each department so that they have a place to exemplify the work that they're doing. So ideally, it'll gain some momentum. It'll get rolling with that. Thank you, Steve.
And just real quick, the pre-K, I know pre-K was brought up at the last meeting as well. 2 meetings ago by a community member. We are looking into that. So there is money allocated for full-day pre-K above and beyond what we're currently allocated. We're looking to see what that means creatively. So I have reached out to the department for universal pre-K through New York State.
Like trying to house it in school universal pre-K?
We're going to try. We're going to see what it looks like.
We're not
being
with a local shirt.
We're in space.
Didn't I see Shen had a big article on doing full day? They were gonna spend $31 million on a building to do it?
That wasn't pre-K, that was kindergarten.
Was it kindergarten?
Because they only offer.
The big schools
Okay.
weren't
Yeah.
able to.
They don't even have full day.
I wanted to let the board know that we're not sitting idle on that. I think initially for me, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's too much to think about. But I think there's a lot out there right now that the state is providing, and I think to do due diligence, we have to look into it.
Great idea.
Do some research.
Yeah, there are pros and cons whichever step we take. And we've been underfunded for 20 years in a program we're doing now.
Let's try the other way.
Okay.
Yeah.
No BOE committee reports, no policy adoptions, no hearings and petitions. Upcoming activities, I know we have senior prom coming up. I think we have senior awards coming up. I think there's a lot of end of the school activities that'll be coming up.
The athletic awards Thursday, junior proms next Saturday.
That's correct.
A.W. Becker's having their field day next Friday. I was going to ask Mr.
Jones.
Mr. Jones about Peter B, because I don't know when that one is, but. Color run, but do they have a field day too or not? Okay.
A lot of activities coming up.
Sorry, I'm with the council.
We good? Motion to adjourn. Mr. McFerrin, Mrs. Klein, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.